Hello Trekkies! Today I'm going to make one of those video essays about something I've been thinking about for a long time. There's an obvious nearly season-long bookend moment in TNG that starts in Season 5's The Inner Light and concludes with Season 6's Lessons. And for just a moment, Picard is human.
Omicron Alpha Yellow Daystar 27. Enable.
Jean-Luc Picard, the most British Frenchman ever, who's used Starfleet sensibilities to bury a tragic past, and it's paid off to the tune of sitting in the big chair of Starfleet's flagship. When we first meet him in TNG's first season, he's a stern, by-the-book Starfleet officer who probably replaced Una as the literal poster boy for the service. While some cracks appear in the hardened facade during Season 3, it's where that season ends that gives us our first look at Picard being human. It took the Borg removing what little humanity he showed to others to make him realize, for probably the first time since his mother died, what his humanity actually is. And while this is the Episode 0 in the Picard is Human arc, Episode 1 is in fact not The Inner Light, and has more moments that show growth than simply 2 episodes in a series not known for arcs or continuity. But I believe this arc starts at least 4 episodes before Jean-Luc's experience as Kamen, with The Perfect Mate. A very imperfect episode about forced marriage and trafficking of persons that jumpstarts the whole process of Picard opening up to the idea of love. Kamala gave him permission to love himself and others, and sometimes that's what a person needs to hear. A few episodes later, the Enterprise has its first encounter with the Borg since Picard was severed from the collective. This stirs up even more feelings for Jean-Luc, and moral quandaries about the rights of an individual. If a Borg that's been part of the collective his whole life can take steps towards individuality, then there's hope for Picard. It's really here in the span of 1 episode, we watch the captain go from his by-the-book, unimpressed self to a compassionate individual that's capable of more than just duty. Which brings us to one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that is Picard. The events of the Inner Light are morally dubious even for a dying race, to force someone to live decades of someone else's mediocre life. The most eventful 30 minutes Jean-Luc ever experiences in the real world gives him a new perspective on life, love, and music. For the man that started the series by asking Riker to keep him from looking stupid around kids on the ship, he finally starts to reflect on what a family might mean to him. He got to experience the growth of kids and grandkids only to have it ripped away and force him back into his real life. But it's exactly what Picard needed at this point in his life, toward the end of middle age, wondering if he's missed out. It seems impossible that someone that just endured decades in their mind would be able to go back to work at one of the most important jobs in the galaxy. The next entry in the Picard is Human arc is actually an antithesis of his humanization process in Relics, as Scotty anchors him back to his duty and love of his starship that Picard's been using as a crutch for so many years. Though Scotty tells Jean-Luc he can't pretend he's 18 again and start out as a raw cadet, that's exactly the choice Picard gets in the next entry in the arc as we move on to Rascals. While a silly episode that shows Worf is as bad at training for and implementing security protocols as the US Secret Service, it's another oddity that I think teaches Picard something about his humanity. He gets a chance that many of us dream of, to relive their life from adolescence, but with the benefit of decades of learned experience. I think it also provides him with a reflection on what he lost in his first childhood, and probably whether having a child of his own might not be as bad as he's made it out to be. The next episode is another wacky adventure that mainly involves Patrick Stewart in the director's chair, but opens to a scene related to what we're talking about, as it's the only time we see him randomly playing his flute, and what I find notable in the humanity department is Worf trying to stay busy, and Picard not only denies his security proposals, which after the previous episode should probably be given a top-to-bottom rework, but rather than be the stern, duty-driven officer we once knew, he sees through Worf's facade, trying to avoid downtime with his son, and forces him to enjoy the time. I don't think Season 3, or even a slightly more enlightened Season 4 Picard, would have forced Worf to enjoy that downtime. Up to this point, Jean-Luc has faced hardships on the road to humanity, but most of what we've talked about has been pretty happy-go-lucky. Picard's next adventure to Celtris 3 sees him stripped of his humanity by Gul Madrid. During his torture, when Madrid asks where he's going in his mind to escape from what he's experiencing, it's home to a Sunday dinner with family, which says a lot about Picard's deepest desires. On top of being two of the world's best actors ever facing off in a battle of wits, in the aftermath it gives Picard another chance to rebuild himself with more of an appetite for family. After all, if a Cardassian torturer can make time for family while inflicting unspeakable cruelty on others, then there's no reason Picard can't find room in his heart for a partner and/or children. If these chances to change his life through reflection weren't enough, the penultimate episode of the Picard is Human arc is ironically his death. It seems the universe is all about giving Jean-Luc a second, third, and apparently infinite chances to make a meaningful life. Q shows him that life is worth living, and while it's best not to dwell on the past, that the future is what he makes of it. Thankfully, with a godlike friend like Q, he gets yet another chance at the future, and the next woman that comes his way is Lieutenant Commander Nella Darren, a woman that's very near where he's at in his journey to do Frere Jacques multiple times on the show. She's as into her duty and focusing on her work as Picard has been, but she also knows how to fill her free time with meaningful distractions, particularly music, which is what they bond through. He's able to open up and even play the nearly lost Ressican tune he tried to get right in The Inner Light, which to me still comes off as a reworking of Silent Night. She's contrasted a bit, though, through the episode with the other redhead in Picard's life, Beverly, who's a bit too much of a loose cannon to make a true partner. Out of the few old flames we've seen of Picard's, Darren feels like the perfect woman that he may never find again, but nearly losing her on an away mission where she risked her life to save others has the opposite effect of what one might expect. If this wasn't a TV show that doesn't easily add characters mid-run, I feel like this would have been written much differently. But alas, Picard's lack of experience with relationships pushes him back in his shell, and we never hear about Darren again. It also seemed like it closed the door on his love of music. Until TNG's ending with All Good Things, Picard does not again reevaluate his life. The character feels like it turns back the clock to Season 3 Picard. Though he does get some long overdue moments with Bev during Attached, it doesn't change anything in him except his breakfast spread. The final epilogue in the Picard is Human arc comes during the movie Generations, when he learns of the death of his brother and family. You'd think this might have the effect of making him feel like it's now his job to carry on the family line. Unfortunately, other than a ridiculous diversion during Insurrection, this is how things would remain for Picard for the next 3 decades, as his Starfleet career collapses and he retires to the family vineyard. A man who had a brief glimmer of hope for about a year of his 100-plus year life, and then shuts down back to his default setting of keeping everyone, even those close to him, at arm's length. While not everyone needs a family to feel fulfilled in their lives, Picard seemed like he was on the cusp of it for just a minute. At the very least, it happened at a brief point when he seemed to be a more rounded human due to so many chances to reevaluate his life. While I've called this period the Picard is Human arc since before New Trek existed, he got yet another period in his life where he dies, but isn't permadead, and has some more humanity reawakening moments. Even after he's no longer human, he has another realization that he's wasted his life just existing at the chateau, but not really living. His indentured servant Laris seems to be a decent choice for getting his life back with a partner, but it takes another bit of Q shenanigans to make him realize that. And that's only till one of his oldest loves, Bev Crusher, shows back up under questionable circumstances with his child that he hasn't met in 20 years, and faster than you can say Chal Talk 4, it's all like, Laris? Laris who? Picard is maybe the most nuanced of all the major player captains we've seen in Star Trek. He, on multiple occasions, has to have his humanity completely stripped from him to provoke a glimmer of humanity for him in general. Now with a child, I have to wonder if it brings a sense of relief to the now synthetic Picard, and he'll fall back into his classic Jean-Luc demeanor, or if Android Picard is actually at his most human ever.